Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about what is a sample versus a population and how that relates to a performance versus ability. And eventually we're going to lead into the law of large numbers. All right, so first, you've probably heard these terms before, but a population is the entire group that you're trying to know information about. So a population can be as small as a school or as big as every single person that's on the globe. But the population is is the entire group that you want to know something about. Now the sample is like a subgroup. So you take a sample of your population and you use that data in order to determine some trend or know information that you want to, or kind of discover information that you want to know about. Usually it's impossible to take a survey of an entire population. And that's because people aren't always accessible. So it might be hard to actually reach the whole population. And that could be due to time constraints, money constraints. So instead, we take a sample, and the sample is more attainable, it's easy to reach. There are different types of samples that we can gather and different ways that we can gather information about people. But the best thing to do is just to think about if that sample is biased or non-biased. So the sample size is always going to be smaller than the size of the population. Now in sports, we use something called a performance versus an ability. So your performance is kind of like your sample. It's measurable. That's something really important. It's measurable, which means I can collect data on it and I know what that actual number is. So it is an observed value of actually what happened. Now we have something also called the ability. An ability is an unknown value, so it's not measurable. We don't know what it is, so it can't be measured. And truly, the definition is that we can only calculate this value after given infinite number of chances. But is it really possible to gather infinite number of chances? That's pretty huge. So it's kind of like a population. We've got a huge thing that is unattainable, so instead we take a performance. And we use that performance in order to describe the ability. Here's some examples. Think about the last grade that you got on a test. I guess the test would have been a while ago, back in March or back in April. Let's say you got a 90%. So your performance was at 90%. It's something that is measurable. You have a concrete number with it. But the ability is what would happen if you were given infinite amount of tests. So if I gave you infinite amount of tests, what would you be able to do? Would you truly be able to get a 90? Maybe your cognitive level is not a 90% on everything that you do, but maybe your cognitive level is consistently like around a 60 given infinite amount of chances. We can't calculate that, but we look at a bunch of performances and kind of figure out what that ability is going to look like. Think about it in sports. Your performance might be a hit that you have in a game. So if you're playing baseball and you get a hit, that's a single performance. Your ability is what would happen if I pitched you 500 infinite number of balls and see how many hits you get. So if I looked at infinite numbers, how many would you truly be able to get? So there's certain things that can influence your performance. Have you ever felt really, really sick and really unfocused during a test? Well, that's called random chance. So there's plenty of things that can influence what a single performance is doing. Maybe it's not every day that you get 100 on a test, but someday you had a really, really, really good day, you had a really good breakfast, and you got 100%. That's still considered random chance, but your ability may not be that high, but hopefully it is. So again, performance, how many hits you would get in a season. Your ability is how many hits you would get given infinite number of attempts. So we can never calculate this. So we can never truly calculate ability. And you can really never determine the data within a population. Again, money constraints, time constraints, it would be too much people to gather information from. So think about, what does it mean for a soccer goalie to have an ability to save a goal 48% of the time? So that means given infinite chances. So we are really looking for that key word, given infinite chances, a goalie would save a goal 48% of the time. So what I'm looking for here is that key vocabulary, given infinite chances, because that's a definition question. So what would happen? Now, a performance might be that they save it 60% of the time in one game, but their ability is 48% of the time, given infinite. All right, that leads us to something called random chance, which I mentioned earlier. Now, random chance is a variation between an athlete's ability and their performance. So your performance can influence what your overall ability is. And your performance can be really bad or really good, depending on what happened that day. Did you eat too many tacos before a game? Did you break your hand and you had a 0% performance because you couldn't even play? Are you too tired? Have you ever performed in a way that you did not expect? That's random chance. So overall, your performance is your ability plus random chance. So this is a measurable thing. These two values right here cannot be measured, but we can estimate and we can kind of determine what we think is going to happen if we were given a big enough sample size. The goal is to eliminate as much random chance as we can so that we can understand what that true ability is.